Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of LongShorts, our weekly and sometimes I would say semi-weekly. Sometimes we miss our weekly episodes where we discuss, everything that is under the sun from the world of business, finance, and of course, what really excites us is when we have a guest. And today is no different. But first things first, this is Nikhil Arora. I have with me Mr. Sharat Chupran. I just say Chupran.
The usual suspect word has gone out.
Yeah. This time I'm not saying the usual suspect. I think those from a vocabulary perspective, we need to demonstrate variety.
An eclectic mix.
Eclectic mix, variety, or omission if you don't have any variety on that particular day. But yeah, first things first, guys. We are doing some exciting stuff on side of the podcast as well. We have a new virtual seminar series coming up on investing essentials. That's up scheduled for 22nd of this month, Saturday, 12:30 p.m. So it will be on YouTube Live, where me and Sharad are going to talk about things like, where should you invest, what type of investor you are, what kind of products might be suitable for you. So would welcome all of you to register for it so that you get that link whenever the session goes live. So I'll put in the link in the description.
Yeah, and it's also the first part of a much more elaborate series that we aspire to do.
Yes.
So this will be the first step, and we'll let our listeners explore that by themselves.
Absolutely. So yeah, with rising financialization, hopefully the virtual seminar series would be of help for everyone. So do check it out. Would strongly encourage you all. And along with that, obviously, do search for LongShorts. Do search for Transfin podcasts on Geo7, on Apple, on Spotify, and hit the subscribe button so that you get the nice little notification every time an episode goes live. Now, with all that behind us, would like to welcome today's guest, Mr. Nakul Jain, co-founder and CMO of Inverted Prism. Inverted Prism is into the space of career exploratory programs, career engagement programs. They kind of operate closely in the education travel industry. I'd obviously let Nakul get into a bit of detail, but this is like our third education tech / education services business leader, right?
Yeah, they say there's a lot of money to be made in the industry, and Nakul is clearly chasing that.
Yes. So we had Umang Jain, then we had Kinner, and now we have Nakul. Welcome. Thank you so much for finding the time.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome, guys. Hey, Nikhil, Sharat, and anyone listening out there.
Yes,
thank you for having us, having me over here.
Oh no, absolutely. And it's you guys also have a common connection, right? So Sharad and Nakul both went to the same
year,
quote unquote grad school.
Undergrad. So I've known Nakul since 2004, I guess. Obviously, but I haven't seen him for a while. But obviously, I was delighted to hear about Inverted Prism, and especially based out of Delhi is obviously nice to know. And let's sort of start by getting a sense of before even getting into Inverted Prism, but why sort of go the entrepreneurship route.
Or maybe we can use his extensive LinkedIn profile
to do some
to do so. So I think before Inverted Prism was since December 2014, right? So that's been more than 3 years, I guess. More than 6 years. And prior to that, I think you were a sales consultant. It was mentioned K-12 segment. So I guess that was the first, I would say, involvement in the education sector broadly.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, just let's start from the start. How did Inverted Prism kind of came to be? What do you guys do? Why did you knock upon the space?
Okay, so it per se happened actually by chance, not that it was intentional. Right. After graduating from Manipal 2008, I was a part of the motorsport industry.
Okay.
I was a trainee race engineer with the Indian racing team in the A1 Grand Prix.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That was fun. Unfortunately, that was the same year that recession hit.
Yeah.
And as so be it, I was actually out of the job by the end of the year. And that's when my entire quest of discovering what I actually truly wanted to do.
So you're a mechanical engineer, right?
I'm a mechanical engineer by qualification on paper, but nowhere near that as of now. And to be honest, that was a time when I actually discovered that talking and sales was my thing. And that's when trying hands at different things, I don't know if anybody would know, I also was a part of starting off a small sushi restaurant.
Oh, really?
Actually, yeah, a very non-Jain like thing to say, but that was something that I did.
Right.
But that was actually during that time is when I realized that sales was my thing. I wanted to talk to people every day. I wanted to interact rather than sit in front of a computer or do the regular engineering stuff. And that's when, through a couple of friends of mine who were in this space of education per se, but I would say educational travel,
Right.
they were the ones who gave me an introduction to this industry, where I got to know that something like this is existing, where students, instead of our times where we used to have the most basic of outdoor experiences in our schools, that it had leaped way forward and students were traveling internationally for educational experiences, which was something absolutely novel for me also to know at that point in time. It got me interested. I got hooked on with the entire idea and the scope, because for me, I always wanted to probably impact the young adults, and having gone through the entire education system of being a part of the CBSE school system, and then going the usual rounds of scoring well and then taking up science and having the engineering preparation as the usual stuff, and going through the entire scheme of things of applying and going for those engineering entrance exams, and then finally ending up in an engineering college without having any idea whatsoever that what engineering is all about. That somewhere led me to believe that there are hundreds and thousands of students every year ending up doing whatever is happening around them without taking a very conscious or a very informed decision what they want to do. And that's where I started realizing that this could be one of those modes where, instead of just giving out a lecture or having a theoretical experience of career counseling or just a talk given to them, that maybe we could fuse this whole idea of traveling with giving them hands-on engagements and experiences with what could be out there for them beyond the usual engineering or becoming a doctor or a lawyer, which becomes a very automatic choice for the Indian subcontinent students. So that's where I got introduced to this industry around 2010, and I began as a consultant for the company that my two friends were running, and gaining experiences over the next 2 to 3 years. The idea was formulating in my mind that what I truly wanted to do, because being someone else's company, I did not have the freedom to execute all the ideas.
So this particular, like when you were sales consultant, this company, they were obviously touching some part of the educational value chain. Was it quite similar to the one that you eventually went for, or was it just the space that you got interested in while working there, and then you figured out, okay, within this entire space, it's education, travel, and experiential learning. That's something that I want to focus.
So the thing is that company was one of the many other companies that were one of the first players to enter into this market.
Okay.
They were also learning from their own experiences and going as it takes them in the forward direction, and they did not understand what was the potential of educational travel. They were still those people who were looking at it as a mode of only taking them to places which might sound educational or might have the potential of having educational.
But you thought you can go deep dive into it.
I realized that this is just the tip of the iceberg, and we can go much more into the depth of going towards tangible learning outcomes, which was completely missing from this industry till then. And how it started off was that one of the biggest facts that started in the mid 2000s, when the entire disposable income started increasing for the Indian diaspora, international educational travel started happening, because parents wanted that, now that the studies are in place, they wanted a sort of a global edge to their own kids. They wanted experiences which were now beyond the usual, and they could afford it. So at that point in time, the biggest trend that turned out was, as we all know, US is the king of marketing, and they have the biggest brands to attract the students, and still we have a majority of students going there for studying. NASA was one of the biggest names that was thrown around in this industry, and somebody came up with the idea of taking Indian students for a camp at NASA in the US.
Interesting.
Now, NASA was is still a common name for every kid, every parent, or everyone around us.
Yeah.
Even if we might not know the full form of NASA, we still know that what NASA does, and immediately we think of a rocket or a spaceship as we think of NASA or an astronaut or the moon landing. And what happened was that using this popularity of that brand name and that attraction, companies started offering a trip to US where students could end up doing a small camp, a 3-day or a 5-day camp, which was already built for the local American students or students from other parts of the world that were traveling over there for those camps, which were basically based on how students can be introduced to the idea of space industry and get to know more about how NASA is doing many things and popularizing NASA only in that field. So those camps which were commercially available, anybody could buy those camps or the seats for those camps and be a part of that camp. And that was something that started being floated to the schools, starting with the elite of the schools, whether it was the Doones or the Vellams or the DPs, Harkepurums. They were the ones who first got a whiff of this by people approaching them.
But was there a structure in terms of like, was the offering at that stage mainly a kind of a vanilla trip? Or because I guess like where you guys try to differentiate yourself is that you actually have a curriculum and a kind of clear value proposition for the students that, okay, you guys are actually going all the way, but it's not just that you are at Johnson Space Center and you spend a day there. I guess there are some interventions done at the company level to make sure that some sort of a career objective or endpoint is met. But I guess in the beginning that was not the case, right? It was just a sales, it was just a commoditized travel package which was probably being sold, correct?
Right. So as any industry, when it starts, even in this space, the only thing that was being sold off was the brand name. There was
they were piggybacking on NASA, right? They were not actually giving something of their own.
This was more of a glorified trip where just because that camp could be attended, the schools started lapping up on it and they started going for such programs. There was nothing wrong with it because there was nothing else available also there in the market. And although initially they were going for proper camps which did value a sort of value addition to the student, rest the entire part of the trip, I would say, was sightseeing elements like going to the Niagara Falls or going to New York to see the Statue of Liberty or going on top of the Empire State Building, which was also one of the biggest factors that led me towards the birth of Inverted Prism, was that this was also catering to the only one category of student which was interested in science or space science. What about the other kids who would be interested in other subjects? And also the fact that although we were going for the NASA programs, there was no methodology, no way of understanding what was the tangible learning outcome or key takeaway from the program. The only thing kids were coming back with were their shopping bags or selfies that they were taking during the programs. If we could ask later on the schools or the students that what did they learn on the trip or what was the key takeaway, for them the answer used to be as random as going to Universal Studios or probably going for their shopping or having fun with their friends.
But you know, it's interesting that you're kind of putting it like that. I mean, in terms of the initial days, because there were not that many, I would say, viable or thought out propositions, was it that parents were pushing schools that, look, I want my kids to figure out what they want to do, so, you know, what do you have on the menu, quote unquote? Or was it that the companies were able to convince schools, and then when schools kind of approached parents were like, okay, this already has a validation of the school, so let's go for it, without actually realizing that there was no kind of no KPI framework, quote unquote, put on it.
So the latter part is more correct, what you're saying. It was the only option, and that was pushed by the school to the parent. If an organization was approaching the school with only one kind of an offering, even the schools did not have too much of a choice. And for them, to sound as controversial as I can, for them also the pushing point or the motivational factor for the schools also was that in this entire program or the scheme of things, while students were traveling, they also got to travel for free. Right. So traveling to US was one of the dreams that they were also fulfilling through this entire
exercise.
The offering that they suddenly got. From traveling to local destinations or going on adventure trips to Missouri or Goa or Kerala or any such thing, immediately having the thought that we can now explore the US and then later on any other country, that was also one of those pushing factors for them, to be completely honest.
Yeah. And for children in that demographic, right, we're talking about high school students, maybe even lower, right? Do they have the sense of maturity to know what they're interested in? Maybe that you can still gauge, but to actually be focus on the educational and learning aspect. I mean, I think of myself when that, like, if I go to any US or Canada or Europe or whatever, I think I'd also be inclined towards having more fun. And it's not a reflection of just interest level, but just like kids are
that
sort
age,
of
right?
That age is sort of it's a tough bracket, right? It's a tough segment to get on board, right? I mean, is that one of a challenge, or do you think that those are the grassroots level? That's when you mold them, right? So I mean, that's actually better. So how does it generally? How do you think about such things? Yeah.
So for such programs, Sharad, the main target audience is the middle and high school.
Okay.
With the biggest audience that we get being from the middle school.
Right.
That I'm saying from the grade 6 to 10th maybe.
Okay.
And between the age bracket of between 10 to 15, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we go into the depth of it, then cognitively, this is the time when they are developing a lot of opinions. They are developing their sense of thinking which direction they need to go to, or exploring many things. If we think that we are going to impact the students when they are in 11th or 12th, that becomes too late an age bracket to influence them or to try and convince them to do or try out different things. By that time they've already made their own mindsets. And also our education system is as such that in the middle school,
you're already aligned, you're already on track then by the time it's
right.
11.
So although we are giving them many options per se by making them think that they have many other clubs to join or many other things to join, but our education system systematically, by the time they're in the board classes, they are already driving them towards making a decision that either take up science if you're scoring well, or taking up commerce, or if you're not scoring too well, then arts is the only option for you. That's the way that the traditional things were going on. Through these educational programs, although we know that in the middle school the students are not clear what they want to do or which direction they want to go for, and if we keep on pushing that science is the only thing or NASA is the go-to dream for you, then we are again somehow supplementing that entire thought process which our education system also is.
But like, it's
doing.
interesting, right? I mean, like, I think you and Sharad, we are kind of pretty much product of a similar time frame when it comes to
it's identical,
right? Like we're all like 2003, 4-ish type products from high school. And obviously you have a lot of visibility on schools right now in 2020. And I assume that considering your model, you'll probably be in touch with a lot of affluent schools and progressive schools. Do you see, obviously CBSE and ICSE board structure aside, but do you see there's a attitudinal shift in terms of how educational institutions are kind of looking at career streams? Is it more thought out now? I mean, obviously some of it may be because of intervention of programs like yours, but like in general, like what's your, I would say, bird's eye view? Or still, you have the same, PCM, PCMB, that kind of blunt force categorization. Is that still the norm?
So, Nikhil, personally, I believe IB education system is one of the best things that is out there for the students because of the entire way they have.
So by IB, it's international
baccalaureate school system where there's a lot of emphasis on hands-on learning, on encouraging the entire philosophy of inquiry, action and reflection, ensuring that the students end up learning things by doing things themselves, having a more inquiry based learning system, which is starkly opposite to our traditional road based learning systems of CBSE and ICSE. I'm afraid that sometimes I still get a little shocked that how things are very similar to when we, as we said, of 2003, 2004 era when we were in our schools.
Even in affluent CBSE schools,
yes,
you see things have not changed.
See, it depends a lot on the leadership of the schools. if we are only going to be dependent on the school board, then not much has changed
Right.
in the CBSE education system per se.
Right.
They are still following very similar systems to what they were before. There were a few progressive elements tried with them, like CCE, but then again they were also put off by the boards.
Right.
Now the thing is that if unless there are many progressive CBSE schools also out there,
Right.
but that is mainly because of the leadership. They want to explore many more things apart from just learning within the classrooms
Right.
or within the subjects
Right.
outlined by the CBSE.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I see out there, is that unless you're an IB or an IGCSE school, which already has ingrained within their education
So I
system.
guess you're demarcating between the board and the management, right?
Correct.
So in case of CBSE, because the board probably has been fairly static, the onus is on the management to kind of change things. Whereas in IB schools, the overall curriculum framework itself is fairly progressive. So that kind of acts as some sort of a inducement for the management to align.
IB and Cambridge curriculum both. Cambridge has been more popular.
What's the market? I mean, how big is it? Like, how many schools are there? I mean, are there? Because I don't know. At that time,
Seemed like
it was not a very mainstream concept, right?
Right. So again, IB started gaining traction again in the mid 2000s when the spending power of the parents increased, because inherently IB schools are going to be more expensive compared to any other board system. Having said that, when I began my journey in the K-12 segment, in 2010-2011, there were still less than 100 IB schools in the entire country.
Okay.
But if we see the trend moving forward, currently there are 200 plus schools already, and this is one of the biggest markets after China and the Middle East in the increase of international curriculum schools.
And IB being expensive because the certification licensing costs are higher?
See, it's a Swiss-based education system. They have their exam fee and also the kind of infrastructure that is required along with this entire education system, and also the kind of trainings the teachers that they have to go to be qualified enough to impart the education in the way that IB professes. They have to undergo a lot of trainings, and that happens with the IB, and for that they charge a lot.
It's almost like FAA, right? It's like the aviation authority. Like, you need to be licensed, otherwise I'm assuming they must be having like annual or biannual inspections also, right? To make sure that
they're very stringent with that. And the fact of the matter is that because of these measures, actually that's why the teachers are more sought after also, those who are trained in the IB, and there is a lot of assessments involved.
But is it true that like most of the kids who come from IB system, they actually then also kind of work abroad, they kind of move overseas? Is that's
not necessary, because now even the Indian education institutions have started accepting IB grades.
Right.
So it's not a immediate or a natural tendency that anyone who's opting for IB is immediately going to think that they will be studying abroad.
So like suppose if you look at like a Delhi University or something, would they they have a very clear cut off kind of a framework, right? So do they have some sort of a translation metric for IB as well?
They do.
They do. Interesting.
So they can follow that as well.
So obviously there's education is like keeps on evolving and moving, right? So tell me a little bit about sort of inverted prism, right? Like do you typically operate with partnerships with school, or is it completely schools are completely sidelined and you can directly go to the customer, i.e. parent or the child? And how does the typical program, I just want to understand how a typical program start from beginning to like how you decide. NASA is a great example, because even in our generation I think everyone knew NASA. Before ISRO or anything, rocket science, everyone knew NASA is the ultimate epitome of successful engineering, right? Everyone thought like that. So how does a typical project work?
So I'll take a step back and just give a brief introduction of what IP does.
Okay.
So having said that how this industry started with the NASA offerings, and then how it started getting commercialized with the 3-day or the 5-day camps, then getting down to 2-day or just 1-day visits also. And the Indian parent thinking that just because of the NASA word being thrown around, that their kids are going to end up learning just by visiting that place without any assessments, without any other diagnostic tools involved in the entire process.
Yeah.
So when Inverted Prism was in its rudimentary stages, we were trying to understand that what is the kind of learning outcome that we would want to give to such programs where parents are willing to spend. There is a lot of opportunity across the globe. What should we be focusing on?
Yeah.
What is it that the students truly want to learn? So we saw that everybody has this natural fascination with going abroad or going global, and every school professes that they want to bring up the global citizens of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Nobody is just thinking locally or thinking of only joining their family businesses. These parents are also maturing to the idea, and even the students are now ready to explore ideas beyond the usual boundaries that were created for students maybe 20 years back. So we decided that the program should be aimed at that, not just showing them a dream that, oh, this is what you can do, but also telling them that what is the way of achieving that. What if they are dreaming of going to the US or dreaming of going to Singapore or studying there or working there, what is the way and what are the opportunities lying out there for them beyond just the science based opportunities? Because we also saw was that no matter how many students we interacted with, students were still unsure of their options or applications of their courses that they wanted to do in the various industries that were out there. So what we focused on was how we could build career exploratory programs in all these destinations, where the focus would be that how we could empower or enable the students into taking more informed decisions with respect to what subject streams they wanted to take up, and ultimately what colleges they want to go for, and ultimately what companies they would want to join or how they would want to apply their knowledge. And for that, we had to ensure that if we are going to amalgamate the opportunity of travel with any learning outcome, then we have to tell them that what is the process of making these choices. And how that needs to begin with self-discovery.
So I guess career exploratory, by the sound of it, sounds like it's an open-ended program, right?
Right.
Like you're not kind of putting very closed rules. So can you like give an example like of say one of your career exploratory programs? Maybe that will be interesting to understand.
So absolutely. Since we are targeting the middle school students,
Yeah.
one assumption that we can easily make is that they have not yet decided what they want to do in their lives.
Right.
And even if they have decided or they think that they want to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, that is a result of the immediate peer influence or the family influence. If both the parents are per se doctors, the child immediately think that they want to become a doctor, or that's true for any other profession that they want to take up with. So why this career exploration program is open-ended, and we're not saying that we are through our programs we are going to ensure that this is what exactly you are supposed to do. What we want to say is that we want to offer you a buffet of options out there. What we were seeing is that, and we still see, is that if I tell a child that you go to a 3-star hotel food buffet, you have only 5 or 6 options in front of you. There is a small description in front of a dish. You can only read what is in that dish, and on that only basis you can choose that dish and only eat one.
So this is like typical, like it's like a horizontal diversification, right? I mean, you don't go deep into any one category, but you'll make sure that okay, like there is like in the entire 8 to 10 period, I don't know like what the average length of your program is, but like in that entire duration you'll make sure that you'll cover a few different career domains. Is my understanding correct?
In a program which is typically going to range from 5 days to 12 days, the idea is that we can increase this buffet of options.
Okay.
And they can smell, taste, get a feel of what they would want to do.
Right.
So what we want to do, what we do through our programs is the students get to explore careers in all the 3 major streams of science, commerce, and humanities.
Okay.
With equal emphasis given to all these 3 streams and not overemphasizing only on science.
Got it.
Sure. Yeah.
The idea is that during the entire experience that they have with us, using our methodology and our diagnostic tools, we can take them for info sessions, hands-on engagements, workshops, make them interact with experts in various fields, ranging not just from NASA, but even doing a theater workshop at Broadway in New York, or going and doing a workshop on artificial intelligence at MIT, or going to the New York Film Academy and exploring careers in theater, or going to the Great Barrier Reef and knowing about marine biology and ecology and exploring careers in that application. that gives them a wide perspective of various options that are out there for them. And in the process, we have our own application, mobile application that we have developed, which has a lot of diagnostic tools inbuilt into them, which are psychometric analysis to knowing basically how we can ensure that inquiry is there, how we can know that what kind of retention they are having,
Right.
which ultimately gets them to discover their own inherent skill sets,
Yeah.
which will ultimately lead us, our product team, to assess all the worksheets that they fill up or all the things that they do during the program to give an assessment report
Right.
per child that this is what.
So you kind
They
of
are-
you kind of give some sort of a view on, we feel that alignment of the child is more towards this. You kind of try to give that.
So
Like, is there
the-
like an advisory input that goes from your end?
I'll just correct that.
Yeah.
It's not our view. What we do is that a very objective
You collate it.
assessment of
Yeah.
the entire data
Yeah.
that has been given by the students.
Got it.
So gone is that day where we are only going to take them to a place, make them see things and come back.
But that's
They do
interesting,
all of that.
because I mean that is basically what like how you probably are tracking how the child is engaging with different sub verticals
Correct.
during a program.
Correct.
And you kind of collate that data, you formalize it, and you give it in a user-friendly manner. And I guess the parent has access to it, right? Or does it?
Ultimately, we actually give all the access to the school.
To the
And
school.
then leave the decision to the school that what way they want to share the data, because this also, as an offering from our side to the school, is
Right.
that this enables their own counselors
Yeah.
into having a more
Details.
qualified discussion
Right.
with the child and the parent, when
Right.
ultimately they will be discussing what subject stream they want to take up or what kind of careers they want to offer.
Right.
Because if during our programs they are able to understand that after engagements with careers in science, commerce and humanities, and even within those major streams, the various subfields, they are able to understand that the same child who was completely disinterested or disengaged in a workshop at, let's say, NASA,
Yeah.
they were truly engaged when they were working on a virtual reality designing workshop at MIT,
Yeah.
which gives them a much more deeper understanding of the child, what their inherent skill sets might be, and instead of only relying on a psychometric analysis or a psychometric test, which would be an hour long and which can be easily fudged, they will know that what are the true interests of the
Right.
child because of the hands-on engagement, which is very, very important.
And this kind of, and I guess like I was going through your site, so I guess this is one part. And the other part that you kind of have is more career focused programs, right? I guess in that case, you're assuming that the child has he or she already has an area of interest, and you only focus on that.
See, those programs are meant for the higher grades or the more older.
So once
students.
the kind of initial R&D
so the
has been
students
done,
after their 10th who have already chosen their streams,
right?
because we can't influence them into changing their streams at that age level.
Yeah.
Then the 11th and 12th grade students, having decided their own major streams, we help them explore and engage with careers in those streams.
So one is a buffet of options, one is a deep dive.
Yes. One is again, it might be still a buffet of options, but only within
Only
that
within
stream.
that.
Because each stream itself opens up so many doors,
Correct.
right? Yeah. And how do you sort of, is there a method of like collecting the students that you want to take for a trip? Is there some kind of filtering, that detailed filtering that goes at your level as well?
See, to be honest, we don't want to actually have that filtering process. In fact, already our programs being international, we already have I would say a more focused group to be targeting for our programs.
Yeah.
And anyways, these programs are meant for everyone to explore each and every option. It is not based on their marks, their intellect
Sure.
levels, or there is any sort of a preset criteria that for doing a workshop on even a VR designing or doing a workshop in ecology that there is any prior skill set that they need to possess.
Yeah.
The idea is that how are they engaging with that and how much are they enjoying? Do they show any keen interest in it or they are not showing it? What about how would I filter that a student might want to become a museum curator? That's something that probably none of us even think of.
But like I think what one is trying to also get to is like, if I am a student,
right,
and say Inverted Prism has a kind of a relationship with my school, how as a student, how do I know about your offering? Like in what form do I know about your offering?
So what we do is that we first of all approach the school management.
Yeah.
Because we have a plethora of options ourselves, we present it to our value offerings to the school management.
Right.
They are given the choice of deciding which
Right.
program would suit their students the most.
Right.
And they might have their own agendas also at that point in time.
Right.
Based on the choice that they take up, then our team takes over and we present this idea visually through a presentation to the students in the school, followed up by a few activities to promote the program, like putting up posters, sending out messages on the school ERP system to the parents or to the students, and sometimes physical forms as well, or I would say circulars, which informs the parents about such an option being there.
Yeah.
Because these are completely optional programs.
Yeah.
They're not going to be mandatory for anyone. So this is how the parents get to know that
it's fairly interesting like that, and I definitely feel there's a market for it, right? I mean, intuitively, you obviously have a closer look at it. It's something that I could also resonate with in terms of just opening up more doors, right? And it's that, but sort of I'm just switching a little bit towards the business side of things, right? How do you what are the challenges in the business of running? I mean, I understand the problem statement here, and I think we were fairly convinced that there is something there, but to make a business out of it, right? What do you think are the next steps? Is it just plan to grow? There's just more the students, more batches, more programs, more countries, and cover. That's one way of growing. Or do you think there's ways to sort of engage with the child much more, like you talked about psychometric analysis and things like that? How do you think about growth as a business operator?
So the thing is that if I just talk about a vertical of career exploratory and career focused programs, we have still reached out to less than 1% of the students out there.
Yeah.
If we talk about the schools who can afford these programs as of now, I'll also just briefly mention that these are international programs. We try to build domestic programs on similar value offering, but we don't have the kind of ecosystem with Indian organizations who can offer such a ecosystem for students to come there and replicate what NASA is doing. What we can that be done by ISRO is not a possibility as of now. Because these international programs are there, we still have a lot of schools in each and every tier 1 and tier 2 cities who can take up these offerings and who have the aspirations to explore these options or have that global perspective for their children. So we are steadily growing in that space, and this is a very haphazard or I would say still a nascent industry.
So there are like 250 schools?
I would actually say that just Delhi NCR might have 100 plus schools who can take up such offerings.
This includes IB plus non-IB.
Correct. And even CBSE schools, even a school which has a fee structure of 1 lakh plus per annum can afford such programs, because we are not only talking about a program in US, but our programs start off right from a Bhutan or a Singapore, which can also provide offering at a cost which is
I guess
very
the
affordable.
Immediate focus for you might be that, okay, let's get the penetration higher, right? I mean, we already have a templatized model. Let's kind of replicate it.
So we tried to, Nikhil, to answer that, we started off in the initial phases when we were also cash strapped, that we could try out a partnership model and think of having franchisees in different cities. But that can work out less, and it actually posed challenges for us. Was that somebody has to believe in this, and it's not just a very easy product that can be just sold off on the face value of it, like that. Somebody has to be motivated enough, somebody has to be put their heart and soul into it, and they should not just do it for the money, but they should actually think of ultimately the student and understand that what kind of value add that we are trying to give them.
Because I guess, like when it comes to kids, like there are so many security concerns, parents, quality, it all has to be kind of vetted to make sure that it doesn't.
See, that still is under our control, because all the operation and the execution of the program still remains under what we are. So our head office is in Delhi, and everything related to the execution of the program stays with us. The only thing that we wanted to expand into was the business development side of it, where those concerns might not be brought up, but still someone to be motivated enough and someone to be passionate enough
Right.
to cater to such a segment, because let me also prize you that school industry is not a very easy industry to work with. Decision making
Takes a
in
while.
schools, identifying itself that who is a decision maker
Mm.
in a school is a very difficult process.
Yeah.
And it takes, sometimes our turnover time periods with schools can run up to even a year or two of pursuing them, of trying to understand that how the school is functioning, who is the decision maker, who has authority, and
It's not a
who
regular
ultimately
sales. It's
understands
not a
that.
regular sales / BD kind of engagement.
Correct.
Right? I mean,
And still sometimes, unfortunately, having built all these tools and differentiators, we sometimes are still put into those categories of travel agents, where we are pitched against them, and then we have to match up our costs or our prices also to them, although we are offering 10 times more than what their value proposition might be.
Right.
Can you bypass schools?
The
And go direct to
unfortunate thing
students?
is that even though that is a very ideal thought to have, but the problem is that, and if you yourselves will put a thought to this, if a parent is going to send their child who's a minor on a program which is international, for
They
them
need the
to have
validation.
a sense of security, they have to have the involvement of a school where they know that the school is vetting this organization. They don't know me directly, and the teachers of the school traveling along with the kids is a big satisfaction for a parent. If I start promoting it and try and, which can be done at the college level, but if we think of the minors, and we probably tried out a model where we could go out to the condominiums or going out to societies and start promoting it, it becomes a challenge that who's going to accompany these kids, who
A
knows
parent?
them.
A parent maybe? No? Or does
The
it change
challenge
the
with
dynamic?
that would be that then the cost immediately doubles for a parent to
Sure.
bear that they're over here only sending one of their kids, and the teacher is there to take care of them. And over here, mother or a father will have to accompany them, which
Becomes 1:1
Yeah,
rather than 1:2
doubles up,
many, right?
correct. So this becomes, it could still be a possibility, but then we're talking about very few parents who can afford it, and they also have to take out time from their own schedules to be a part of it, which becomes a challenge.
No, I see the logistical
Right, which
challenges there.
has to be overcome, which can still be done at a higher age level when they are not below 18.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, this is a very kind of it's by default a thoughtful product. It's not a commoditized product. I would say it's partnership driven. It's operations driven. It is service oriented at the end of the day, right? It's not like it can't be replicated overnight, and because I'm assuming there are so many of internal checks and balances and processes which have to be put across human beings.
Right.
So from that perspective, like, the entire, I would say, startup / tech domain is all going for like scale and commoditization and platform plays and all that. This is obviously not that kind of a business, right?
Correct.
But does that
But it generates cash on day one.
Yeah, it generates cash on day one, right? Which I'm assuming a lot of VCs don't really appreciate or whatever. But like, I'm sure, like, as an entrepreneur, there must have been moments in your entire journey when you were like, okay, am I going to build a service oriented, cash heavy, incremental growth business, which is obviously a very viable self-sustaining ship, or should I chase growth by actually going into a pure play tech mode, which a VC would get excited by? Is that something that even comes to your mind?
See, when me and my co-founder Sahil, who's also from our college Manipal, when we decided that we wanted to venture into this and go into this model, we had a very clear-cut discussion amongst us. For us, it was very important that we align our values and what is it that we want out of this business. We always knew that this is going to be service oriented. The scale is always going to be a problem, and what is it that we want out of this? Luckily for both of us, we both had this inclination that we were not in this only for the money or just for the fact. I do admit that it has been a self-sustaining business from day one, because fortunately this does not involve all the hassles of edtech or someone where we need to pump in a lot of money right from day one. Our growth has been steady, but we know that what limitation it will always have. And we were happy with that, because ultimately what in the end was on both of our mind was that as I began that, having gone through this entire journey of the Indian education system and knowing that how we have meandered through various options, gone through our experiences after completing our entire education system and then experiencing different things and then truly realizing what we are and what we want to do, and in the end not just losing out money or anything but the valuable time which could probably have been utilized in a completely different way. We wanted that we could replicate these experiences that we have in our 20s after we are outside the purview of our parents and our peers. We are more comfortable, and that's when we start realizing our true passions and start throwing around the words of how I wanted to be a travel photographer or wanted to open up a restaurant or become a chef or do many other things and not be a software engineer, which is the fate of lakhs of students. We realized that we wanted that we could replicate these experiences and do it in their school times and try and empower or try and enable as many students as we could into taking a more informed decision. That was the main crux of us.
It was pretty much a mission-driven approach from day one, right?
Correct.
But like, I mean, that being said, now it's been 6 years, right? 5 or 6 years. Right?
Actually, yes.
Right. And in that, obviously, from a sustainability perspective, you're already there, right? But and tech does play some amount of role from the perspective of diagnostics, from the perspective of psychometrics.
Right.
Do you see that or actually like evolve as a separate standalone tech piece sometime in the future?
We are thinking in that direction, to be honest. We are coming up with...
Because you have a lot of data, right? You have data across schools, you have data across years now. I mean, I'm pretty sure there are lots of...
interest levels people have shown, and you're on the field, on the ground, actually gauging visual cues as well, right?
See, we correctly pointed out, we do have a lot of data. We have a lot of connects in the school industry.
Yeah.
We know what is happening on ground and what could be the other shortcomings in this entire K-12 space. Having said that, just to complete on what the journey of CE in the future or the career exploratory program in the future is, that there is still a huge scope that we still have to cover, because having only established offices currently in Delhi, Mumbai and Bangalore, our operations have a lot of scope even within these cities, because we have not even catered to, I would say, just 5% of the schools in this space. Right. There is a lot to be gained in this space, and for that we are just increasing. We've done away with the partnership model and we are increasing our own workforce in all these cities with the strategy of then expanding, keeping these as our base of going into the tier 2 cities nearby. That's our expansion for our career exploratory program, which still has a lot of scope, and year on year there is repeatability in this. With respect to the other aspects, we are constantly ideating on what can be the complementary products in the same space. We are trying to come up with something which will have better opportunities in terms of scale, and which will not involve the service factor or the logistics factor, which can be executed within the campuses or using the technology factor that will come in. And for that, we are targeting 2021 as the time period that when we will be launching more of our programs. We are also now exploring the space of higher education, colleges. We see that there is an opportunity again of this market being a fragmented, a very unorganized market, where again travel agents are taking a lot of grad students, undergrad and grad students, for industry visits, which are basically just visits to various companies, which can be a very cursory visit, and then ultimately again giving them an opportunity just to enjoy a foreign destination. And we want to explore that space of offering our value add using our diagnostic tools and kind of offering a much more value adding proposition to even those students. So that's another area that we are trying to expand into.
But like for instance, like you mentioned travel agents, I'm sure there are a lot of competing forces, right? I mean, there are guys like who must be like, obviously you go through a fairly extensive, like you've spent a lot of time in building your curriculum, your product, right? But I'm assuming that there are different approaches to the same problem, right? Like for instance, you kind of look at career exploration. Some person would look at art-based learning. Some person might look at even a more boilerplate kind of a solution. How do you differentiate, right? I mean, it's at the end of the day, it boils down to your pitch to the school. So effectively, and I assume that the programs that you do at any school, I mean, every once the relationship starts with a particular school, it has some level of sustainability. It kind of continues for some time, but there must be times when managements change, people move on, new people come in, and that entire process of positioning your proposition has to be reviewed, right? What's the so if I ask you what's the core differentiation or USP of Inverted Prism, how would you kind of put that?
Okay. So if we talk about the school space, K-12 segment, it's such a huge market.
Yeah.
And then the sheer numbers that we are talking about, the number of students in just our country, that's big enough for multiple organizations to coexist and actually thrive.
Okay.
As you said, we might have a different angle attached to our offerings. There are language immersions, there are school exchanges, there are cultural experiences, there are sports related tournaments and visits to different countries based on various offerings within that space that are happening. And we have absolutely no problems coexisting with them, and neither do we want to encroach on their space. There is enough opportunity lying out there for Inverted Prism just on the basis of our differentiating factor that through our programs, our proposition is that we want to focus on hands-on career exploration and engagements.
Yeah.
The main motive of our programs is that how students will be able to take more informed decisions with respect to their careers. The other differentiator that we actually emphasizes on how this product is also the most safe out there.
Okay.
We have seen in the past, and through my initial years of being a consultant in this space, I saw that the least emphasis was being put on the safety and security of students when they are stepping outside the school boundaries. Schools are spending lakhs of rupees and coming up with different products year on year of school bus tracking to student tracking to the safety and security within the school space, within their own boundaries. But as soon as they are stepping outside the school, they have absolutely no idea how to tackle this. And that was a shocker for us. And we have stepped on it, and we have tried to emphasize on this aspect of the program as well, that how are we ensuring the safety and security of the students. Like, for example, everyone who is a program mentor for Inverted Prism, everyone mandatorily have to be a certified first aid responder. And for that, we do regular certifications for every team member who's going to accompany the students during the program. So that they can tackle as small a situation as a nosebleed. And believe me guys, if we go to a school and we talk to 10 teachers and ask them that how they're going to treat a nosebleed, at least 5 different answers will come up. And when I did the course for the first time, even I was shocked at how many different or how many wrong perceptions I had related to the most common things that can occur, but that can turn out to be a major issue in the end. Whether it's an asthma attack to handling an allergy, how to treat it with an EpiPen, or how to treat a nosebleed, to even a CPR AED.
Or even homesickness.
Thankfully, Sharad, nobody on our program gets homesick because of the amount of fun that they actually have over there.
It's actually a great way to sort of conclude the
it was a time just flew 58 minutes and I think it was a lot of fun. It kind of gave us a bit of a lot of insight as well in terms of just the plethora of considerations one has to look at in order to structure and execute such programs. So kudos to that. And I think in terms of from a business model perspective, I guess it's quality, right? At the end of the day, it's quality is quality and branding is the play that you are pushing for, and that is something which obviously takes time to build. But once it's built, it obviously that's the moat, right, which everyone wants. And from that perspective, I think that's a pretty, I would say, focused and precise way of looking at one's business.
And you've already got some success metrics in there.
Yeah, because I mean, I always feel that when we are especially doing these discussions, we kind of focus a lot on tech-oriented businesses. We get people from the financial investing community. They have a very different view, but there's always that can always kind of take you in areas where you don't want to be in. Whereas I think when it comes to conventional service oriented quality focused businesses, I mean that itself is that might not be the most quote unquote trendy option which people go for, but I think that's an option which has the maximum amount of longevity and mode creation.
Yeah, no, I agree. Chasing profitability always helps. And
so he's a former equity researcher, so he only looks at the free cash flow. So as long as you're free cash flow positive for a sustained period of time,
I'm a fan.
He's a fan of that.
Yeah, no, it was.
He's a fan of that and Netflix, both at the same time.
Greatest stock story.
Yeah.
But no, it was fascinating to chat with you, Nakul. So it's really good to hear about the things that you're doing. And I think a spillover effect is Nikhil and I are soon going to become educational experts because we are talking to people left, right, center in the educational domain on this podcast.
So I think we need to diversify our product portfolio as well.
I think this space is exciting enough that so many new players and so many new options are coming out there that's why you probably get so many people from this industry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we need to talk to a lot more to not avoid faking our own knowledge.
Yeah.
So, but this is something which is quite exciting. No, thanks a lot, Nakul. Thanks for your time, and hope you enjoyed this interaction. To all our listeners, I would again give you a friendly reminder. Do share this episode, do comment, do obviously, give your feedback in terms of how we can make this a better thing. And if there's anyone who wants to come over as a guest, just give us a shout. And a final reminder, don't forget to sign up for our virtual seminar next week so that we can talk about, investing essentials and where should you invest. It's going to be a pretty similar format, Sharath, right? It's going to be very podcasty, but with the benefit of a slideshow. So
and a little more focused towards a very specific niche on getting up to it or getting started with investing. So I'm excited.
Q&A as well. Cool. And with that, I think would like to wish everyone a good week forward. And this is Nikhil Arora.
This is Sharath Tupran
signing off.